Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP coming in from Melbourne, Australia. Here's the first pop culture show for 2024. How are you guys, and did you have a happy new year? Daniel, let's start with you. How are you?
Hey there, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. Yes, had a very good time. Been out in Ohio, then back here in North Carolina working with this and that. Actually been producing recording sessions this week for my friend Phil Lee in California. So I'm ready for, and there's a lot of stuff coming this year. So I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys.
That's fantastic. Ed, how was your new year?
It's okay. It's kind of quiet, but it's here and ready for another exciting year.
Oh, well, we're waiting for Pop-O-Matic. What's the next episode you got coming up?
I'm interviewing a friend of mine, Greg Prince. He's a blogger for Mets fans, and he's been an author of writing a lot of Mets books and things like that. So that'll be more of a sports-oriented episode. But I've interviewed a few other people, and I'll send that information out to everybody.
Good, get into it.
Check out
That's
the
all we
website.
want. Pop-O-Matic, it's out there. Nathan Liu coming in with his band, All You Need Is Love. You guys been gigging over Christmas or what?
We took a nice break, and it's been a nice 2023 year for us. So we took a nice break, and everyone could be with their loved ones. And we're going to start up again very soon. So Happy New Year, everyone.
That's great.
Happy New Year, Nathan.
Nathan Liu, the only man who knows Plastic EP is a human being. Isn't that amazing? And Vicky's in the background in the kitchen, but she's a no-show. That's how she usually is, all right? Anyway, listen, let's get into the news, and let's get into whatever we need to talk about. And Daniel Costin, the only man with a level head here, he's the only one. Just tell us what the news is.
I'm Daniel Costin, and you're not, and this is 2024, and here is the news. I was intrigued this week by the new collaboration with Liam Gallagher of Oasis and John Squire of the Stone Roses. They are working on a new album together. The first single was released this week. Check it out. If you like the Roses, it's definitely got that with Liam Gallagher out front. So check it out. I have mentioned, of course, our friends in The Circle. I can tell y'all it's not public knowledge, but it will be soon, that The Circle's new album, Revival, will be out March 22nd on Big Stir Records. It's new songs, more photos, more awesomeness, and I'm really excited for you guys to check out the record. And there's some other projects I am working on that hopefully I can tell you about really soon. I will just tell you that 2024 will seem a lot of times like 1966, and that's a good thing. So check that out for that. A lot of bands hitting the road this year. Pearl Jam has just announced a tour. Billy Joel is out doing stadiums again with Stevie Nicks and Sting. I think you'll see a lot more tours getting announced in the next month or two. I will mention that Ringo is out on tour in May, I believe, and I think there'll be something in the fall, and who knows, maybe his old bandmate might tour the U.S. this year as well. I know that other band, the Rolling Stones, are touring the U.S. this year as well, so you never know. I did want to mention today the passing of David Soul of Starsky and Hutch and Don't Give Us on Us, Babe. David has not been well for a while, but he will live on forever. And Godspeed, David. And apart from that, it's just, I did mention I was working on recording sessions for my friend Phil Lee, working here with some folks from Charlotte, and it sounds fantastic. And Nathan, I think you can speak to what it's like to get people in the room and record and just create a vibe and a happening. And that's what's got me into producing the last few years. So it's a lot of fun. I hope to do more of that this year. I also want to mention, so we discussed Ringo. John Lennon or his estate is releasing the 50th anniversary box set for Mind Games. Yes, it's now 51 years old, but there you are. It'll be out this year with deluxe books, a whole lot of things. And I think you're going to see more. Now that we've gotten through Now and Then and the Red and Blue issues, I think you're going to see more releases Beatle related in the next year. I don't know when the next Beatles reissue is going to be, but I think that might be at least a year or two down the road, but it is coming. So as you can tell, there's a lot going on. I'm looking forward to everybody else's news, and I will see you on the road.
Now, I just want to say Paul McCartney's doing a limited edition anniversary Band on the Run album. I don't know if you know that, but that's going to be huge as well. I just want to say my favorite album is Red Rose Speedway. Just is, when you go that big barn door, the first song.
Yeah,
It just gets you. But I gotta tell you,
It does.
Plastic EP's got a new album now. It's been released worldwide. It's called Need You Girl. But what people don't know, I just got approval now for the EP's novelty album. Now, what happens is I released this album a long time ago, but it disappeared. And the cover had the logo of the EP's drumhead. But that album, I don't know why, it disappeared. So what Plastic EP is, he redid it, remastered it, and now it's coming out a new cover with me on it. It says novelty songs, right? The EPs, right? And it's going to be a buzz. And one of the songs is called Lost in the Jungle with a Caveman. Like, you got to listen to these songs because I don't want to say too much about the titles. There's one called, I think it's called Angelique or something, some Mexican name, right? Angelique or something. I'm forgotten what I don't know. It just passed me by, right? But I spent time 1 month mastering the album. It's going to be really great because the title of the songs are way out there, so I can't get right into it. But once it's on, I'll stick it on my Facebook page and I'll put the links to where it is. So, you know, that's great. I'm 4 songs now to another new album. No one knows. I just need another 5. The demos are already like done but haven't been recorded, so I'm looking forward to that. So when I'm not doing interviews, I'm doing music and I'm searching the net because you could be on the Plastic EP show. I am looking for people that will blow your mind. That's right, Daniel. And I want to say, Ed, you know, what you're doing now with Pop-O-Matic, what you did over Easter, we're all pushing ahead in 2024. Now, Nathan, I want to find out what you did over the new year. What did you do? You have a party or something, or someone came over or something? Because I made a phone call with you.
well, I just took it easy and enjoyed the transition of going into 2024. And, I just want to tell you guys that, I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. And, Daniel, you're connected with, for photographing them and everything. And, I just wanted to tell you guys I was listening to the Beach Boys over the holiday season, and I sure have missed the early stuff. And I hope they do something because, for example, I was listening to Help Me Rhonda. There's 2 versions of Help Me Rhonda, if you understand that. And the second version, Brian Wilson actually changed the bass line, and there's fade-ins and fade-outs. And, there's 2 different versions of Help Me Rhonda, but they're both great. But if you listen to it, the first version is quite brilliant because there's this guy named Julius and what's her name, Carol Kay. He's playing a stand-up bass, and Carol Kay is playing the Fender bass. That was back in '65. Now, the Wrecking Crew did stuff like that, so people don't realize that there's 2 bass lines going on there. Same with Good Vibrations. Now, I'm a bass player, and if you guys ever listen to a band like George Harrison's All Things Might Pass, you listen to the drums and you take it for granted because there's 2 drummers there, okay? So one guy might be holding the rhythm and the other guy's doing something intricate. You couldn't possibly do that unless you have 4 arms. So when you listen to 2 bass, or you listen to 2, drummers going at it and 2 bass players, it's really neat. And Brian Wilson was a genius. He could put melodies, he could combine instruments together. I would like to see some Beach Boys come out because we haven't talked about the Beach Boys in a long time. And, they were a phenomenal band. You listen to their harmonies, you listen to Help Me Rhonda, there's all these takes and different versions of it. And their vocals was always great,
Now, I want to
So
say,
that's what I was
That's
doing.
one of the things about the Beach Boys that I appreciate. Because, if you look at the Beatles versus the Beach Boys, the Beatles had George Martin as their producer. So he worked out the orchestrations, and eventually John, Paul, George, and Ringo were able to understand a bit more about how that worked and were able to give direction as to what they wanted on a song. But that was essentially, in the earlier days, George Martin's responsibility and how to arrange all the different instruments. But that was all Brian Wilson's head
That's
for
right.
the Beach Boys.
That's why.
And that's
that's
something
what
that
we-
people sometimes miss.
That's right. He was a genius and very, he produced it all. I mean, he admired Phil Spector, and if you listen to a lot of all the recordings, he used that wall of sound. Believe me, maybe
Exactly.
not lately.
now I want to say Plastic EP's favorite Beach Boys song is Help Me Rhonda, the single version stereo. Now, a lot of people don't know, but there was an album released. Now, whether it was a bootleg or what it was, but it was the Beach Boys with telephone conversations with the Beatles. Have you heard of that, Daniel?
I have heard of it. I've not heard it. I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
You need to go to Swap Meets. You need to look up on the net, try and find this album where the Beach Boys are having conversations with the Beatles, and it's been recorded over the phone, and they put out this album. Now, whether it's a legitimate release, I don't think it is, right? But it was out there in the public. So a lot of people don't know that, which is really interesting. And I've got to say, Daniel, one of our greatest interviews was regarding the Beach Boys and regarding Jan and Dean, and it blew my mind. Tell everyone about that.
That was awesome.
That was amazing. So we were talking with David Beard of Endless Summer Quarterly, and right in the middle of it, Dean Torrance showed up, and that was it was a lot of work to get him on the show, but it was a lot of fun. And I will mention that Dean is actually playing Abbey Road on the River in May with the Circle.
Wow.
And Dean Castron, Plastic, and our friend our good friends with the Royal Guardsmen, Snoopy versus Red Baron. So all in one day. So you can go see Dean, hear all this great music we're talking about, and the Circle and the Royal Guardsmen all in one day at Abbey Road on the River.
Are you going to be there?
I will definitely be there.
Right,
yes.
you got to come in live with your phone. That's what we're going to do.
I
We're going
will.
to come in
I
live.
will.
Now, I got to say, it's just amazing how much news and how everything in Plastic EP's world is interrelated. Like now, we start speaking on one subject, leads to another subject, tells us about this fantastic event that's going to happen that no one knows about. And this is what it's all about, right? Because what happens is in Plastic EP's world, I may do an interview with one person that's connected to another person. I do the interview, and then you realize that those two are connected. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle and all fits together. I know the interviews where one person says something that's relevant that's got to do with another person that has a similar experience, right? It's unbelievable, but it's true. It's like I'm like this magnet where the missing pieces just come together on the show. It's happened. Hasn't happened once. It's happened a long time. But I got to say, with Jan and Dean, right, I got to say with Dean, when he said, "What's your name?" and I go, "Plastic EP," and he goes, "Oh, right." That's so funny. That's so funny. I had to explain it to him, but he got it.
Dean is a beautiful character. I look forward to
one of the
seeing him again
greatest
and hanging
people.
out with him. Yeah.
Unbelievable. That interview's in my mind forever. That was like, you know, when that happened and we did the interview and we edited and put it on, it's just something everyone's got to go to the internet and go and see these interviews. There's so many interviews when we did the Knickerbockers, right?
Yeah.
When we
that
did
was
all these, the lead singer of the Angels, right? My boyfriend's back. I mean, where's that come from?
Wow.
They're like, I mean, there's these wow interviews out there that no one even knows.
I
You know,
gotta go
Plastic
find some of
EP's
those
done
interviews.
1,030 interviews. Start with one and you got another 99.9% to go. It's unbelievable that 1,030 pieces of information are floating around the net 24/7. But anyway, now, Ed, I want to ask you, have you got any pop culture news?
Well, before I go into my pop culture news, I want to go back to what Nathan was saying about the Beach Boys. Over Christmas, of course, you hear all the Christmas songs. The Beach Boys made one of the greatest Christmas albums of all time. And they're probably the most famous Christmas Beach Boys song is Little Saint Nick.
Yeah, I was going to say
And
that. Someone
what-
did a clip on him, cartoon type. Have you seen that on the net? That's one of
No,
my
I have not
favorite
seen
Christmas songs. That's fantastic.
But what I did notice is that, and I have to find out which release it is, but there's a version of Little Saint Nick during the course of when the Beach Boys are trying to record it, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with it, where it's modeled on, I think it's Fun, 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 or I Get Around, as opposed to having its own melody. And they were just like trying to take one of their other songs and put the same lyrics of Little Saint Nick to it. And it's really fascinating to listen to because it just shows you the artistry, how they came to develop these songs. So I just wanted to add that on. You might want to look around for that on streaming. If you Spotify or Apple, whatever, look up alternate versions of Little Saint Nick. Very interesting.
I also want to say the Beach Boys are the peers to the Beatles. Make no mistake. The Beach Boys were huge before the Beatles landed in the USA. So you got to understand where we are. They're singing about California girls, experts in marketing. Then they realize out in the West, they got no beaches, but they got cars. So do a song on the girls on the beaches, B-side, do the cars. I mean,
Of course.
409. That song, I play that every day.
I'll give you an example of I think it was 1966, Good Vibrations. They took 6 months to do that, and they did it in portions, and then they spliced it all together. It's like it's like the most unbelievable piece of music recorded. I mean, they took so long on it, and there's so many versions of it, but any version of it is great because, I mean, if you listen to the opening line, people don't do that on the bass where, you know, it goes, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, doo-doo. I mean, Brian Wilson was way ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And I'll say it again. We all know that he was a genius. You know, I mean, a genius is, he probably wouldn't want to be called that, but, you know, a guy that can write music, play music, sing music, and produce it. And, you know, Daniel, you're very well affiliated with them. You know, we're just admirers. I mean, you're in a room with this vibe. I mean, Mike Love, I mean, he's huge. I mean, he's Mike Love, right? Al Jardine.
He's
and
very cool.
You know, these remaining, you know, Beach Boys. I mean, there's definitely got to be, and there's always a vibe between a photographer and the artist because they trust you, right?
I will tell you the second time I met Brian Wilson, David went to say, "Oh, this is Daniel," and Brian goes, "Yeah, I remember. Hey, Daniel, how are you doing?" And it was just like the world just stopped. You know, that's beautiful. That was just beautiful.
That's so great.
I
Well,
will mention,
to continue with my pop culture news, I looked up some movies that are coming out, and I think you're going to find that 2024 is the year of the remake. So we have new versions of Ghostbusters, Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah.
We've got even Roadhouse, which is an old Patrick Swayze movie. They're making a new version of that. And if it hasn't been done enough, Mean Girls, which was a 2014 FA movie with Lindsay Lohan, then it became a Broadway show maybe 15 years later. Now it's a movie again. And so, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that going out. We have a couple of biopics coming out earlier this year. We have one on Bob Marley.
Yep.
We have one on Amy Winehouse that's coming out. That's pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, so I mean that those are the big things. And then there's a movie called If, which is about an imaginary friend, which involves John Krasinski and Steve Carell from The Office, along with Ryan Reynolds, about an imaginary friend. So it sounds a little bit like this TV show Imaginary Mary from about 5 to 6 years ago meets Monsters Inc. because they've got to protect these kids from losing their imaginary friends. And so, anyway, it looks like it'll be a weird season for movies.
Now,
I'll
just
mention-
going to say, Mark Arnold said he's going to come in from the laundromat live, right? I hope he comes in during his washing. And I also want to say, Charles Rosenay, right? He's got a book with Mark Arnold now. It's going to come out, The Turtles. We can't wait. That is going to be huge, really huge. And not only that, I found a Beach Boy clip with Good Vibrations, and I sent it to Charles, and he sent me a message back saying he's never seen that clip in his life. And that's the one where they got an organ and they're all standing there. One of them's dressed in white and that. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that's a real rare clip.
I'll have to look that one up. So I should mention too, Mike and Bruce of the Beach Boys are out on tour this year, as well as Al Jardine. So please check them out if you get the chance. I also mentioned, going back to Ed, Ed and I recently did a podcast on the Partridge Family Christmas album, and that was a lot of fun. So if you haven't had the chance to check out Ed's shows, please do. And Lord knows, I may pop up there too.
Cool.
Now, I want to say something. A lot of people don't understand my sense of humor. I can be very sarcastic at times, and it goes back to Married with Children. That lead dad, he's the dad. When I watch Married with Children, it's like Plastic EP's talking to himself, because the sense of humor that he's got, I get every joke, and I'm just like, I get that character as being real, not being fake. You know, that I've got to tell people that because it's true. His sense of humor on the show, where he's pretending to be someone, is to me really realistic, because there's certain people out there that are really like that, including my sense of humor. I had to say it.
So Classic, I've got a book for you today. I didn't write it, but if you're a Hofner lover,
Yeah,
this is
tell
a-
me.
written by Joe Dunn, and it's all about all the bases that ever happened.
Yeah.
And I just love the book. This is a great book if you love the Beatles Hofner bass. Okay, I
That's
got
it.
this book $20 back in the 90s, and I still have it. And I think I think it's out of print now, but it's a great history and knowledge of the bass.
Listen,
You know,
that's a great book. And what I want to ask you is, how many Hoffman bases have you got now?
I've got 3 of them now, and I don't need 3 of them, but it's kind of funny how you acquire things. And, I can only play one at a time. So there's spares, and depending on what show I'm doing, if I'm outside and it's really hot, I'll play, one of the ones that aren't, as expensive, or if I'm going really far, in case I get lost, I'll take the one that's not as valuable. But I have a German one. And they are really special basses, that's for sure. And if you look at the Beach Boys, they played a Hofner Beatle bass as well. So everybody played them. And for a little bass, what tone? What can I say?
Now I want to know
I've
which
been
is
reading.
the Paul McCartney bass from the cavern that was stolen, right? What is the actual model of that?
That is the 501, and they call it the Cavern bass. And that was the original Hofner bass, really. And, I hope he gets that bass back. But they've given him one like they gave Artie in the Fab Four. He has it, but it's not the original one, right?
Yeah.
But it's too bad that you don't see him play it. But, why would he? It's not his original. And, somebody must know something, but even Hofner has put out, begging for this bass to go back to its owner. And if you guys understand Randy Bachman from BTO, he lost that beautiful Gretsch, and he actually found it from a Japanese artist, and he had to get this guy the same guitar and everything, but he got it back after all these years. And when Randy Bachman used to go on tour, he used to chain that Gretsch to the toilet in the hotel room. So his manager said, okay, I'll take care of it one night, and he didn't do it, and the car got stolen. And poor Randy, he never, and same with Peter Frampton, that guitar went missing, and he got it back. So
Wine
these
crash.
these instruments are as iconic as the artist. If they don't have their instruments, like what's his name, the guy from the Byrds, he never had that Rickenbacker,
McGuinn.
the guitar that Roger McGuinn says, look, people say I got your guitar, but he's never found that one either. So you wouldn't think a guitar would make so much difference to a person, but it does. It's like,
Have you got a picture of the guitar, the bass that Paul, it was stolen? Have you got it in that book there?
Yeah, but it's not, he had it modified, okay?
Okay,
Because
but I want to see the
Hamburg-
picture of the original bass. Have you got a picture
Well,
of what it looks like?
in Hamburg, that bass got beaten to death, and it actually got refurbished, and that's why it's so iconic. And if you look at this, you'll see it, okay? And because this bass was actually used on the first, some of the songs that we think that was the other bass, but it doesn't matter. Paul plays any bass, it sounds great. He could have played a broom and everybody would have bought it, but he bought this. I think this bass was about 30 or 60 pounds back in Germany in the day. That's nothing. Now they're $5,000, That's
about the Top of the Pops, the Beatles played and that film was lost, don't you? I think it was
Yeah.
Rain and Paperback Writer. I'm not sure the two songs, but I think that's what it was. And that film went missing. Because what happens is the BBC had a tendency of wiping over the tapes, right? It's true. But there was someone
That's
that
right.
worked there that was collecting the tapes of the shows, thank God. And he had these tapes at his house. I went into that story with someone who told me that story. And he archived stuff that no one had because the BBC just wiped all these great clips from the early 60s.
Well, Plastic, you mentioned Paperback Writer. Now, I had a bet with this guy one night, and he thought he knew everything about the Beatles. And I said, listen, when we get up there, you're going to hear a nursery rhyme in Paperback Writer. He goes, yeah, right. I said, I bet you a steak dinner that there's a nursery rhyme in Paperback Writer. He goes, prove it to me. So if you listen to Paperback Writer, what do you hear as a nursery rhyme?
Frere Jacques. Yep.
He lost. I wanted the biggest steak, and he said, how do you know that? And I said, well, it's my job to know that. So everybody in the world, when you listen to Paperback Writer, you'll hear the Beatles, you'll hear George Harrison and John Lennon going, Vera Jacques. Okay? Is that the truth, guys?
It's the
Yeah.
truth. It comes in specifically after it's 1,000 pages, give or take a few.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
And people are knocked out about that. And that was the Beatles. Why would they do that? Because
Sense
that's
of
the
humor
Beatles,
just out
right?
the window.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Like-
going to talk about their backing on the song "Girl." You can hear that for yourself what they're actually singing there,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to
I know
mention
what
it,
they're saying.
right? Because
we're
it's a
hung-
family show, so just leave that one there as
that's
it is.
right.
But let me explain.
We're diehard fans, and we know what they're saying.
Okay, now I don't want to say too much because of time, but if you got any pop culture news you want to say, Nathan?
Well, I don't have any news. I mean, they did a lot with the Red and Blue album and Now and Then, but I'm hoping that they're going to do another Beatles album with that new technology. I would really like to see them do the BBC, the Star Club, and before we go, because we're getting old, and how old are we going to be when all this stuff's going to get done? But I think the Star Club would sound amazing because they could mix it and balance it all out, and we'd be, and same with the BBC stuff. That can be fixed now.
But let me say something. George Martin, he made a recording at the Beatles Shea Stadium, and he said it wasn't up to scratch, right? I watched the show yesterday. Now, there's the perfect thing to do the technology to that concert, right? He recorded a soundtrack, wasn't up to scratch. With the new technology, they could redo that and put that out. That would be amazing.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll mention too that there's a recording floating around where it's the Beatles at Stowe, which is a boys' school in April '63.
Yeah.
And it's it's been cleaned up.
They just cleaned it up, and I heard it, and they were even good back then. I mean, this kid, I can't believe this kid did that. I mean, and you know what? They have the set list, okay, for that period of time that the Beatles were gigging, so they could tell by the songs what the set list were. And there was "Love Me Do" on there, and all these other songs that you'd never think that they would do. And and then a couple of years ago, they showed the earliest clip. Pete Best is playing, and then their leathers. I mean, how much more stuff do they have that we haven't seen? I mean,
I can tell you there's more out there, and I think you're going to see it in the next 3 to 5 years, particularly around the next anthology. I think there's an anthology redux coming, and I think some of the things you're discussing will be a part of that.
Well, if it wasn't for the Plastic EP show and Plastic EP, there's this guy, I think his name is Eric Towers or something like that.
Yeah,
This guy has a vault of stuff, and he told Plastic what he has. And I remember that interview because he said, I have all this stuff, but I'm not allowed to release it. But there is stuff that's so close that you've never seen, and it's all in these archives. And it's too bad, red tape. And Charles Rosenay, he has tons of stuff too, but he hasn't released it. And Plastic said, you know what, guys? Can you just make a tape and preserve it? But
Yeah.
they didn't do him. They
No,
just
they got
sort
to
of
preserve what they got, because once he
Yeah.
disintegrates, it goes. I mean, I'll be honest with you, right? I've got recordings that I've done on 1/4-inch tape. I've taken those 1/4-inch tapes and turned them digital. So while the 1/4-inch tapes are dissolving into themselves, and you're losing quality just from age.
Yep.
If you got something,
But
so many
there's
years
probably-
old, 30, 40 years old, you got to transfer it to digital straight away.
Yep. And I think there are people like Chachi Lapret and Charles Rosenay. They're so close to this Eric guy that they've gone to his home and probably seen some of this stuff. And I remember Plastic specifically saying to Eric on the show, do you have anything on the Monkees? And Eric went like this,
Oh yeah.
but I'm not allowed to disclose it to you. So he told Plastic, and it's great that this stuff is rare, but hopefully we'll see the light of day. Right, Plastic? I mean,
Yeah, well, you
We-
got to understand, Eric worked on 8 Days a Week, the Beatles touring film. He just worked on the new May Pang film, right? The Lost Weekend with John Lennon. He said that was one of his greatest works right there. And Eric, if you're watching, I just got to say, you do a fantastic job, right? Keeping
Yep.
all this film historically right, buying up the
Yep.
film and restoring the film. And as I said, doing projects for Apple, and it's just a credit because there's a lot of people do it. And I also got to say, What people don't understand is there's a revolution right happening on YouTube. It's been happening now for 2-3 years, okay? People get the clips that have got nothing to do with the clip. They make it 4K. They make the quality better. They make the sound better. And when you see it, it's like ABBA with its DVD, right? Where you're watching the vision and you're getting the sound. It's like the same thing has to happen with the Monkeys. They've got to make a Blu-ray where they get those old clips from the TV show. They enhance the picture as much as they can. They put the actual sound recordings from the recordings of the records and put them over it because it was played on TV in mono. And you're going to have something that's completely different. And I tell you, it can be done. And I know
Absolutely.
because, you know, in the time of the VHS tape, I was one of the first people to get every single Monkey clips from the 58 shows and put one song after the other. No matter if they did a romp and it had nothing to do with the song, but they played that song. And I was watching like